Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi ho everybody and welcome back to D Plus Us Weekly, the show where we're going to talk about shows exclusive to Disney Plus, episode by episode, week by week for our enjoyment and yours. I'm your host, Scriven Denell, Griffey D-Pad, with me as always, the amazing, the wonderful, the excellent Mr. Mitch George. How are you doing today?
I have thoughts.
I feel like we're about to have an episode that is just as much about the show as it is about the world.
And not wrong.
And I want to preface that at the top of this because, holy shit, man.
Holy shit is right. We're here to talk about the latest episode of X-Men 97, I think episode 8 of season 1.
Episode 8, Tolerance is
Extinction.
Part 1, the end game of X-Men 97 is here.
I'm not ready, but also I need it yesterday.
Holy shit, we've learned who Operation Zero Tolerance is composed of. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about a absolute crapload of cameos in this episode, as well as the actual guts. We finally got really what is the thesis statement of the show in this episode. So much happened. Of course, this show is full spoilers, but before we really get into it, we have a rigmarole, of course. Go check out our other stuff. Go check out our other show. We just put up a fantastic episode about a terrible movie called Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. It's actually a pretty fun episode and a lot of frustration on our parts.
You have to bring it up.
Yeah, I gotta promote our shows. If you're listening to us on podcast services, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel where you can catch this in video format, a regular show in video format, as well as a couple of trailer reactions we've put up recently, most recently reacting to the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer and the Mufasa the Lion King trailer. Those out of the way. Mitch, I sent you a message while we were both just wrapped watching this show before recording today because of schedules.
We're very fresh. It's been about 15 minutes since I finished this episode.
I sent you a message saying, holy shit.
Yeah.
And what's
And I'm
wild
pretty sure
about
I responded in kind.
What's wild about that is there can be 1,000 things in this episode that was referencing.
Yeah.
We could talk about.
You sent me that. I was about 5 minutes from the end of the episode. So you sent me that at the moment where Nightcrawler shows up to back up Wolverine, fighting all of the Super Sentinels with goddamn swords.
With 3 swords.
And all this craziness. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're like, oh, I'm already done. I'm like, oh no, what's next? And that next 5 minutes.
I want to start with the cameos because the cameos are frankly the least important thing to talk about in this. But we got some major ones today. The actual cameos being Silver Samurai, Omega Red, and our boy, the web swinger himself, Spider-Man, popping up in this.
Not the only ones, because you're also forgetting Doctor Doom and Baron Zemo as part of
Operation Zero Tolerance. I consider them more than just cameos because of that. They are part of it. Seeing who all composes Operation Zero Tolerance. So we've got Doctor Doom, we've got Zemo, obviously Bastion.
Presumably
parents.
that was Madame Mask.
I don't know.
That was my best guess.
I think it was just random person with some.
I had just assumed it was something we could figure out based on the fact that the other two were such recognizable.
My assumption is that it was Daria. It was the journalist, the news anchor.
But she was a Sentinel.
Yeah, but she's part of this.
I guess I don't know.
But yeah, getting all of them together, only for what's her name to release Magneto. What an episode, man! There's so much happening. Professor X being in the intro.
I'm like, oh, he's back, and he's back in the last 30 seconds. But he does the thing, and we see the X-Men. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how they're getting Storm back. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Dude, the entire time that the Summers family, which one of the best lines of this episode is, let's show these. It was what was it? Toaster No, what's the thing?
Let's show them that you
Toaster
don't mess
oven?
with the Summers
Yeah, I was gonna mess with
family.
the Summers. It was something really stupid for like piece of technology. I think it was toaster oven. But yeah, like them being together, so much happened in this. There's so much to go through. But I love that this put us essentially like when it comes to the Operation Zero Tolerance like comic storyline. This essentially puts us at the end of what was the prelude.
Yeah.
Jubilee
What
is
the hell?
captured. A bunch of
Hell's
X-Men
happening
are
with these next 2
down.
episodes?
That's a good question. Here's my prediction now before we really jump into like the heavy ramifications of this episode on both now and the world. Because yeah, we're going to talk about that Magneto was right speech.
Oh yeah, that's the thesis of this entire season, according to creator Bo DeMeo.
Here's my prediction now. Next episode will be them fighting Bastion. They will beat Bastion near the end, and then the last episode is them fighting Magneto. I feel like that's the way they're going to go with it, but don't quote me. Anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, I honestly don't know where they're taking us, because ultimately, you know, Val has her speech. Magneto is right. We've been saying Magneto was right the entirety of us recording this show, and it holds true, especially now, understanding the machinations that have been in play, causing Genosha. Like Bastion has this whole thing of like cause mass hysteria, and now you add structure and, you know, control the situation.
Yeah,
which is the way that these mass events have happened in real life as well. It's fucking spooky.
One of his most
For an
chilling
animated show.
One of the most chilling lines from Bastion here is like that wasn't an attack. That was Genosha wasn't an attack. Genosha was time management, which was horrifying. Like really setting the stage of just how fucked up Bastion is. Like Sebastian Gilberti is a excellent villain, and instantly has been used better in X-Men 97 than he was ever used in the comic books. Seeing like how he transformed his whole town, his own mother, just so well done. And I kind of loved getting everything with his mom in this episode, and like it being the Summers family because they're going through their own stuff right now. We get a great scene between Jean and Nightcrawler about that of like memories are laced with emotions. Like you may not have been there for it, but you feel these things. Like no one's going to fault you for feeling your emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Feel the way you need to feel, and let the rest of the world decide how they want to feel about that.
Yeah, I promise I'm gonna.
I also feel like this is the strongest we've had from Wolverine. I think in this entire show,
Wolverine finally got to be a badass.
Point. I was gonna say he was a focal point in the original show, but I do feel like he's taken a bit of a backseat to all of the Summers family drama, all of the Sentinel stuff. This episode, he's a fucking rock star, and I'm all about it.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of. I liked Wolverine in the backseat, frankly. I think Wolverine is the X-Men now, right? Like, he's the person we all know. It's the reason he's in Deadpool. You're freaking Jackman. But I like that he's been in the backseat, like, having his relationship with Morph and his friendship with Nightcrawler. I'm still convinced that Wolverine and Morph are dating in this show. I know they're not, but it just feels right.
That's just the way you ship it, and that's fine. I mean, we also get a great cameo via Morph with Juggernaut here.
Such a good one. But yeah, having Wolverine and Nightcrawler really taking the stage in this one of some of their fights. The moment
we've had Nightcrawler in the intro with his swords for 2 weeks now.
And now we finally got it.
Oh, he's finally got the goddamn swords.
The moment when we watched the teleportation happen was so cool, and like seeing Wolverine experience it.
You were that one guy. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, yeah, that was
But yeah, I think one of the most badass moments in this entire episode is Wolverine in the air just chopping down Sentinels.
I just sent you a tweet where essentially the script just said Wolverine performs a Clawnado, and the animator is like, I bet. I mean, that's exactly what he does.
Isn't Clawnado one of his?
It's a Clawnado.
Isn't that one of his moves in Marvel vs. Combat? Marvel vs. Capcom.
Marvel versus Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Marvel vs. Capcom.
An alternate universe where it wasn't DC.
Well, a lot of this,
Well,
a lot of the fighting has been very inspired by Marvel vs. Capcom.
which I'm all
So-
about. His move in Marvel vs. Capcom is more of like a coordinate, like a drill claw thing.
Okay.
Like where he like goes towards you. But I'll take it any way I can get it.
It was so cool. It was so badass. Like him, I think that honestly one of the cooler moments for me in this one was also Sunspot was Robert DaCosta finally going full.
I love Jubilee's bit where she's on the roof, be like, everyone else can fly, and then she tries and fails.
Fails
Because she's
immediately.
like, oh, come on.
So I had the Spider-Man cameo spoiled for me.
Oh, that's too bad.
I mean,
I didn't.
it's
I saw him
fine.
like, yo, let me just hear the voice. Let me hear the voice, and they didn't do it.
I
I'm like,
thought
all right,
for
that's
sh-
fine.
I
You
thought
save it
for sure
Spider-Man 97.
knowing
It's fine.
well, Spider-Man ran through 98. Reminder.
Spider-Man 99, whatever we want to call it, it's fine.
Hear me out. Recast Spider-Man's voice actor and just say fuck it and make it
Yuri,
no, not Yuri. Why can I not remember his name right now?
Josh Keaton.
Yes, Josh Keaton. Just say fuck it.
They could, but I'd love them to get the original voice actor.
I mean, same. But anyway, what I was getting to is like I totally thought that's what he was
I
going to
also
show up.
don't think they'll do that because they're also still doing Spider-Man freshman year, if that's still a thing. So I don't know if they want to have two.
Well, I
animated-
wonder if they're going to try to get any allies after this. Like we saw Cap in the other episode. I don't think they're going to go that route, but it very much is a dire circumstances going into these next couple episodes. Like the X-Men are fractured and whatnot.
I do wonder with how integrated Operation Zero Tolerance is, both within the UN, like the reveal here, which I called, as soon as we found out Magneto was alive, that Val survived the attack as well.
Which, looking back, was extremely obvious.
So obvious, but at the same time, understanding how tightly coupled the UN has been to this, and these other enemy
villains.
states, like looking at Zemo and Doom, and how well, like, mutant genocide is occurring in this universe at this time. And will there be heroes that stand against that? I do think the answer is yes. I do think we'll get a Portals-like moment when they're in that fight against Bash and against some of these other bad guys, if the other bad guys make an appearance. I don't think they will, but I do think there will be other heroes that stand with the X-Men in this scenario. I don't know if it'll be many, but I do think it's going to be more than just X-Men that we see.
I mean, if there's going to be anyone, it would.
This fight.
If there's any
It'd be
heroes they'll
Spider-Man.
add, it would be Spider-Man, Captain America, and maybe the
Cap.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Those are the only other heroes that really ever appeared in those 90s.
Maybe the Defenders?
Yeah, they didn't really ever pop up though.
I'm just trying to think like closer allies of the X-Men in the 90s era.
Well, it's really them,
Like-
because we had the whole Secret Wars arc within the Spider-Man show where he calls on
Yeah.
Storm. Where he wanted all
For
the X-Men,
budgetary
but for
reasons.
budgetary reasons he could not. It very much is that vibe of like the Deadpool bit in the first one of like, oh, interesting that I only see you two. Yeah, I could see it happening. Part of me hopes it doesn't. Part of me wants it to just be the X-Men.
We'll see
But
what
also
happens. We
the
got a
other
couple
part of me
weeks
is
till we know.
a sucker for comic book bullshit, where it's like I have the Blood Hunt comics in here, and I'm like, just seeing a bunch of my favorite heroes on the same cover is always fun.
Always fun.
Yeah, anything can happen with this show. I want to talk about a couple other pieces before we really get into the Magneto is right stuff, because that does feel like how we have
That
to wrap
is
the
the end
episode.
of this episode, yeah.
'Cause that is a conversation. Once we start that conversation, we can't have any other conversations because that might take.
You are very much correct in that assumption.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit more about Sunspot and Jubilee. I feel right calling him now Sunspot instead of Roberto because he really does come into his own here. But everything with his mom here.
He and Storm will be in the intro next week. I think Magneto might be back too, but he's going to be Sunspot in the intro because he's an X-Men now.
See, I don't think he will be. And I will go a step further. I don't think Jubilee will be in the intro either.
It really depends on what the focus of the episode is. If the episode is trying to get them out, then absolutely. If that's something that's saved for part 3, then yeah, I think they're not in the intro.
See, I don't think you put him in the intro until the finale because it has that much more weight to it.
That's true. It really just depends on how they structure this story going into the end of it.
But yeah, I fixed my mistake from last week though, Mitch. I did watch the intro this time.
You never skip the intro. Although it can spoil moments in the show. I'm like, okay, so at what point is Professor X coming back? Also, we know Storm's not coming back this week, which I kind of expected she would after she saw the news report from Genosha.
Yeah, I thought
she better have a damn good reason for hanging around with Forge for like a couple days after that, other than just banging. Like,
she probably got attacked by Prime Sentinels or something. I don't know.
It could also be.
Here's the thing: they're never going to address it.
To explain it.
They're never going to. But yeah, everything with that storyline of how they do end up being like with his mom and like the pressures and stuff of all of that was so good.
Oh man, the vibe there, that it was very much the vibe of that other young adult fantasy series that shall not be named, where there's that moment in the hometown area that I'm not going to name because it's very indicative of the universe that I'm talking about. But very much like this wolf in sheep's clothing moment of like going back home, trying to get this information. Oh yeah, no, little old lady just being nonchalant. I'm like, as soon as they walk into this, I'm like, goddamn sentinel. We know they're sentinels.
No, yeah,
He's scanning for sentinels. She's a goddamn sentinel.
Yeah, not that. I'm talking about in Roberto's home. Like at the very beginning, like his mom very much like being like, fuck you and everything you're doing.
Well, more just like the optics of it. Not that she didn't hate her son. Like,
yeah, she didn't hate her son.
She hates her son.
She just has to be very careful of it. Like,
she's
it is
being
very much
cognizant.
That,
she's being cognizant of the optics of it and how it will reflect back on her business, which is awful.
She's more concerned about her business and her than the actual issue at hand, which is, as always, most people in all of this and a very big part of the show. And I think that was very well displayed here with her letting her son and his partner get taken away by Sentinels at the end of this episode. And being like, no, you need to do this. Like, it is a gut punch in the best way for this show. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into it?
No, I think we have to get into it.
Mm-hmm. All right, the speech. The fantastic Magneto was right speech. I have it up. I'm not going to read all of it, but it's like this whole speech about deja vu and ending it with Magneto was right. Finally, someone saying it in the actual show. Something we've been saying the entire season.
Hell, something we've been saying since the 90s. And the fact that like they were very deliberate in Val's interactions with Magneto, drawing focus to the scars of his past in World War II in the concentration camps. Like,
seeing the number tattoos
adds
a lot.
That adds so much more weight to understanding him as a captive and why he's being as quiet as he is, what his mission meant to him because of what he's experienced. And he has one line in this entire episode, and it's never again. And he just shuts this shit down like that, and it's perfect.
It was so well done. Like, it's been that thing we've talked about for a while, and it's why the comic books have gone the way that they have. Of like, no, Magneto has been right the whole time.
Yep.
When it's a thing of I forget where the quote came from, but it was one of those things of, it's something that's been in my head a lot lately with everything that's going on. Of it's like, if someone ever tells you that the government won't do something, they absolutely will. And it's that way with a lot of stuff, with a lot of people. The line in the speech that really gets me was, I had the most profound sense of deja vu, as if past, present, and future didn't matter and never had, because we always end up in the same ugly place. Like, it's extremely accurate, especially to where we're at right now. Like, in the U.S., where colleges are being overrun by cops mad at kids protesting. Like,
as opposed to the protests from white supremacists that are happening in the same streets. And it's one of those things of, well, if there's people wearing masks and you don't see the people that you're expecting to see stop the bad thing, are the people in masks the ones who are supposed to be stopping the bad thing? And in a lot of cases, that is the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
awful to see, especially from like it doesn't impact me as much being in Canada, but like seeing all this stuff from a distance, it breaks my heart. And seeing some of that xenophobic, or in this case, forward thinking phobia, however that goes. Um, it's a global issue. It's not just something that's being limited in the U.S. And
Yeah,
it's
I think I
it's
can only
heartbreaking
speak
to
to
see all
U.S.
over the
stuff.
place. No, I know. I'll just say like it's happening everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah, it's an issue everywhere. Like, I don't know. I think we often equate X-Men stories to bigotry and whatnot because that's very much what the X-Men have become. But it feels like now more than ever, like this one is hitting.
And then even still, like I think you said you think the last episode is going to be facing off against Magneto.
I hope it's not.
I don't think it is, because we have that moment between Nightcrawler and Wolverine. Wolverine's like, he finally did it. Nightcrawler was like, we stopped them. Like, no, he's declared war, which is what he has done by destabilizing all of this infrastructure globally. Not just the Sentinels, but everything went dark.
Went dark, yeah.
Like he's come out and he has declared war against the human race, and we're going to see that play out either in these next 2 episodes or the ramifications of that in season 2.
Yeah, and then we really need to. Like, I hope we get it done well. Well, obviously we'll see in the future, but like I really want to stress that deja vu line. About him, I was saying, like, yeah, this is the thesis of the show. This is the best line delivery in the entire fucking show.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
But yeah, just with everything happening right now, I really want to get that line across. Like, there's another great point in this one where it's like where Bastion talks about how he's weaponizing apathy. And I think that is a big one amongst all of this that's very relevant to right now as well. Like, it's so easy to just turn off because, oh, yep, that's happening right now, and move on with your day. And that's just not the case. That's not what we should be doing. It's such a well-made point in this show. Like, just really, really resonated with me as I was watching it. Yeah. So I know I'm saying this into a microphone to the void of the internet, but
it helps.
It helps.
The catharsis of being able to vocalize some of these things that we're all feeling on a day-to-day, especially with the way things are in the world, geopolitically, with what's going on in the U.S., what's going on in the Middle East, what continues to go on. It's difficult to cope, and I think a lot of us turn to media, to television, to film as an escape from some of these things. And I do appreciate that while this has been one hell of a journey, the parallels really do make you think between what's going on in the show and what's going on in the world. So I do appreciate that even in this piece of escapism, they find a way to wrap real world problems in a way that make it easier for folks to understand. Like, I look back at the original X-Men animated show, there's a lot of themes there around xenophobia, around it, hate, like, hate based on, race, creed, religion, whatever. That the idea of being hated for being who you are is something that's really difficult to talk about with children, specifically. And looking at a show like this, I grew up with this show, and at the time not realizing what I was being taught, but really it did teach me that this is all wrong. And I do think, like, we now have another generation, like 2 generations after us, right? Or a generation and a half. I don't know how generations.
One after you, two after you, one after me.
Yeah, because you're a child. They're now going to grow up with a show like this that is far more thought-provoking than anything that we had as kids ourselves, right? So it'll be interesting to see how media like this shapes the next generation and their way of thinking, their way of approaching global problems like we see in the show and like we're seeing in the world right now. And you really hope it's only for the better.
Yeah, I do think that this is one of those things. I love TV and movies. Like, obviously that's why we do this stuff. And I think one of the greatest powers that this stuff has, that entertainment in general has, is to teach. It's why I talk about, like, loving what Marvel has been doing, because despite how you feel about a lot of these projects have been very good about teaching. whether it's opening eyes to new cultures, whether it's talking about the fan base and how it's been, like, it always has something that's been going on as of late that has been a very great through line and a very interesting message in all of that. And I think that X-Men 97 has been the best example of that so far. Like, this is going to go down for me as one of the best Marvel things, period. Like, with how it is doing it.
I think the biggest thing that this does, or that Marvel has done in general, and I see a lot of, okay, this is going to be a weird segue, but I see a lot of parallels between what Marvel is doing now and what professional wrestling is doing right now, specifically the WWE. Looking at, historically, it has not been a good company run by good people. There have been a lot of problems from, sexual assault, and go and do your research and form your own opinions. But looking at the way they've made women's wrestlers into stars and folks that people can look up to, there haven't been many black champions in the WWE, but right now in professional sports, there are 3, I think across all major brands, there are 3 black world champions. And I think that's something to be celebrated, and something like Marvel has done a great job of this as well, of creating these champions for kids to look up to and for kids to idolize that don't fit the traditional mold that you and I grew up with. Like, I'm privileged to say, having grown up as a white man, that a lot of my childhood heroes, Spider-Man, Cyclops, Batman, I guess I shouldn't say Batman, we're a Disney show.
We can talk about DC.
No, I'm sorry, Papa Mouse, please don't hurt me again. I grew up with a lot of heroes to idolize that were white men, and I am glad to see that that's changing. This show has been doing a good job of it, with having, Roberto Jubilee be forefront on a bunch of episodes. It did a great job of this in the 90s, and I'm glad it's just continuing to do that now. But it's something Marvel continues to do and needs to be applauded for, of giving, kids idols to look up to that aren't the traditional mold of what a quote unquote storybook hero would look like, and giving those stories room to breathe and grow. Like Shang-Chi, Black Panther, for the best examples I can think of for, the way that caused cultural movements in theaters. And I want to see more of that. And I hope that the morals and lessons and stories being told here continue to be told in more Marvel content going forward.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from this show, and hopefully they learn the right things. But Disney and many companies have proven time and time again.
They fired Bo DeMeo over some shirtless pictures in an OnlyFans, which is just kind of...
We still don't know that was the reason.
I know we don't, and I don't want to speculate. I do hope that with as much fanfare as we have seen towards X-Men 97, that Kevin Feige and Marvel will rethink the changes that they made and reinstate Bo and bring him back as part of the production team, because I don't think this show is the same without him running it.
Absolutely, yeah. I am very much of the opinion, like, the way they fired him, it couldn't have been that. It had to have been something so much bigger. But we don't know shit. With that, though, I think that's the best point to wrap this up, is just thinking about that final speech. Remember that. I feel like that's going to be coming very much into play into these next 2 episodes. Mitch, this next couple weeks of having to wait for these episodes is going to suck.
Well, I mean, you've got the finale of Bad Batch you can go watch right now.
Yeah, which I probably should finish that show so we can record our episode on it. But
I'm going to watch the finale right after we hit the stop record button here.
Yeah. Obviously, keep an eye out for our other stuff, what we put up on the channel. We will, of course, be putting up a episode for next week. We will see all of that stuff in the future. But until then, folks, have a magical day.
Excelsior. Did you know the X-Mansion's on Airbnb?
Oh, shit.